Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. All right, good morning. I'm going to find a good spot for my water here. I think it'll slide off there. I'll just kind of put it there for a minute. So it's awesome to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I met quite a few of you kind of walking around. I love this room because you're all CMS people like me, or at least most of you, it seems to be. I'm kind of, if there is such a thing, I'm kind of a CMS junkie. I have an agency here at Indy, and we've been in business about 19 years, and which in internet years, as you know, is a pretty long time, right? So kind of like dog years. But I love CMS platforms. I have a technology background. We're a marketing agency. We do enterprise, web, and inbound marketing. But my roots are really in technology. So I love kind of this crowd where we're all kind of tech-oriented and into CMS platforms. And I've heard that Sitefinity is a pretty good platform. So I'm really intrigued. And after this event, I'll be circling back with these guys and learning more about it. So a lot of you have recommended that I look into it. So I appreciate that. So my name is Michael Reynolds. We have, again, my agency is called SpinWeb. We're talking about content marketing today, specifically kind of putting meat on the bones of a content marketing strategy, kind of a Halloween theme, I suppose, since it's October. So a little bit about me. I'm pretty easy to find on Twitter at Michael Reynolds if you want to send me a tweet. I do love tweeting, and if there's a hashtag for the event, I haven't learned it yet, but please tweet using the hashtag and send me a note if you want to. Our website is spinweb.net, and for those who are Indy-based, we're at Keystone at the Crossing here in Indy, just up north. I love tennis. I love sushi. Any sushi lovers in here? All right, you're my peeps. All right, there you go. So I play the cello, and like I said, I'm kind of a marketing tech nerd, so I love this stuff. So it's awesome to be here. So thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it. So a little bit about just kind of my background as well in our company. We do a lot of work with government, a lot of financial services, large law firms, hospitals. So some of you who are local here might recognize some of our clients. So that's kind of who we work with. And we also have a radio show. So if you want to catch up with us later, our director of business development and I co-host a radio show every Friday. It's not a legit on-the-air radio show, but it's online. But we do it live, so we call it a radio show. It's called Spin Radio. It's a very clever name, I know, very clever. But it's at spinweb.net/radio. You can send us questions. If you want to follow up and just say, hey, I've got a question about what you talked about, or I need some advice, or I need some, whatever, you can tweet us or send me an email, and we'll answer on the air, and it gives us great. Not boring. Hopefully, it's pretty lively, and we don't take ourselves too seriously. So, and we'll talk more about this type of content here shortly. All right, so let's jump in. So who is currently doing content marketing? Who's got a content marketing strategy right now? One person. Awesome. Two people. Three. Okay. Now the brave souls are saying, oh, me too. Me too. Okay. Who is in love with your content marketing strategy and thinks it's working really well? Awesome. All right, this guy's on it. Talk to him. Who has a content marketing program kind of you're dabbling in, but you feel like you haven't, the promise of all the leads and sales and dollars has not really come to fruition for you, and you're kind of wondering, how does content marketing really make money? A few people? Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that's kind of what we're talking about today. So a lot of times when I talk about content marketing and I talk to people about what it means, to them it means different things, different people. A lot of people say, okay, it's blogging a few times a month, putting some white papers on our website, and that means that we'll generate lots of leads and make lots of money, right? That's kind of what a lot of people think content marketing means. And that's not really their fault. I mean, a lot of marketing gurus, so to speak, have sold content marketing as this, magical package of things you do and you make money at it. So, in other words, it's kind of magical and it brings rainbows and unicorns and all the revenue and all the salespeople in your company are just swimming in leads and it's all just fine and good, right? So we kind of resold this this package of what content marketing is. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it really is today and what people kind of think it is, why it fails lots of times and why people struggle with it and why they get frustrated with it. And then we're going to talk about what to do about it and give you some takeaways. And then I'm going to try to leave plenty of time at the end for a lot of Q&A because some of you probably have some technical questions, some very specific tactical things. I love talking about this in a discussion format, so we'll leave plenty of time hopefully at the end for that as well. So we'll start with some takeaways. So again, today's content marketing, as I kind of said, it looks kind of like this to a lot of people. Bless you. Blogging a few times a month, putting white papers on your website. There's this mysterious step 2 that nobody really understands, and then you make money, right? That's kind of what we're sold, right? People just think this is how it works, and we're sold this, this magical world of content marketing. And what do we end up? We end up with the salespeople saying, well, these leads suck, right? These leads are terrible. The CEO says, why am I investing all this money in paying people to do content marketing all this time? And we should be going to trade shows and doing brochures, right? Because content marketing isn't working. These leads are weak, they're terrible, sales aren't happening. This is not really working out. So why are we spinning our wheels, right? So let's talk a little bit about why it typically fails. Let's talk about some of the failure points of content marketing and really kind of why people struggle with this a lot of times. And by the way, I love questions throughout, so throw questions out at me anytime. You don't have to wait till the end if you want. Just kind of raise your hand and we'll jump at it. So first off, why? Or let me take that back. Who thinks that the marketplace is pretty saturated with content right now? There's tons of content out there everywhere. Yeah, most of us probably feel that way. We feel like you can do a Google search and just find just a gazillion results on anything. And you're inundated all the time with content everywhere from this source and that source and articles everywhere, and it's hard to keep up, right? That's kind of the reality today. Today's reality is a lot of, I wouldn't say everybody, but a lot of companies are really jumping on this bandwagon of content marketing. And so they're blogging a lot more, they're putting ebooks and white papers out, there's just tons of stuff out there. And so it's really easy to feel disheartened because the marketplace is pretty saturated. So a lot of us, typically feel this way. Also, we have lots of distractions today, right? You go on Facebook to watch a cat video, and you read an article that you find and click over to it, and then you click the call to action to go somewhere else, and then your phone blows up with a text message, and you get back to work on your computer and work on this proposal for a half an hour, and then you go back to Facebook to take a break, and you're just jumping all around all over the place. And both in your personal lives and your professional lives, we have distractions everywhere. We've got mobile, we've got tablet, we've got desktop all competing for our attention, we've got people demanding deadlines in your company, and all these other things happening. And so there's tons of stuff happening that keeps us from really focusing on one thing as easily. And so distractions are it's a reality of marketing today. You have to really understand that it's really difficult to keep someone focused down this nice, neat path that you want them to be on, right? You want people to kind of follow this nice path of marketing that you've set out for them, and the last thing they're going to do is stay on that path. They just won't do it. So this is a reality today, as well as lack of consistency. So because of all these challenges we have, a lot of times it's hard for us to stay consistent because we give up too easily. And we'll talk about that here at the end as well, and where most people give up. But most of us really kind of struggle with fighting through the distractions, fighting through all the noise, fighting through all the content that's out there. And so we get disheartened and we give up because we're saying, well, it's not really working out the way I thought it would. I'm going to take a break from blogging this week and not do it a whole lot. And then suddenly you kind of slow down and you lack consistency and you don't have a clear, consistent program. And that consistency ends up hurting your results as well. One thing that also hurts us is lack of depth. You don't have to raise your hand. It's a rhetorical question, but I'm sure the answer is true for everybody. So how many times have you stumbled upon an article with a really snappy headline that looked awesome, it looked really useful, you click on it, it's called clickbait typically, you click on the headline, and the article's maybe a few paragraphs and doesn't teach you anything at all, right? A lot of heads nodding, right? So that's called clickbait. It's really irritating, but it's easy to do. It's easy to write a snappy headline and write a few paragraphs of weak content that doesn't really teach anything, and then throw it out there and say, well, I'm doing content marketing, I'm putting content out there, right? I'm blogging, I've got articles, where are my sales, right? The leads are weak, right? So lack of depth is hurting us as well. Also, lack of promotion plays a factor, and we'll talk about this as well when we talk about some of the what to do takeaways. So a lot of times we put content out there, we put a blog post out there, we put an ebook out there, a video maybe out there, and we put it out there organically, and we just expect it to go viral, right? We say, oh, this is a great article. I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to just share it a few times on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, and it's going to get picked up, and people are going to see it, right? That's not usually what happens, especially today with all the saturation. And then we wonder kind of why our content's falling flat and not really feeding this system of lead generation that we want. So lack of promotion is where a lot of people kind of stumble and don't invest properly. So we're going to talk about that as well. And then again, lack of patience. Who's heard this drum being banged over and over saying it takes time to see results, it takes time to see results, right? We always hear it takes time. Well, that's because it's actually true. It does take patience and time to kind of reap the rewards of the content foundation that you're building. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. And then sales integration. So one of the biggest problems with content marketing is the silos in companies. And this is more not just with marketing and sales, it's with a lot of things in organizations, but I see it a lot in marketing and sales. We see the marketing team over here is doing a bunch of content production. They've got a lot of good stuff going on. Maybe they've got a program started. They're maybe getting better search results, maybe a few leads. And what's the sales team doing over here? They're saying, well, I'm cold calling all day, and they aren't really talking to each other, and they don't really understand how to get the leads from the content side over to the CRM. It's not really a tight integration, and the two sides of the company aren't really talking to each other. And that's a big problem and a big kind of missed opportunity, because the whole point of a content marketing strategy is to generate leads and business, right? So if you're not integrating with the sales side of the equation, then you've kind of created this huge gap between marketing and sales, and that's hurting your sales team, hurting your bottom line. So that's a pretty big failure point as well. Now that we're all depressed about the problems with content marketing, right? Let's talk about what we can do about it. What are some of the takeaways that we can work on to kind of build out this strategy a bit more? So again, a lot of us have what I call kind of a thin content marketing strategy, and I call it thin because they're just kind of scratching the surface. They're really just, like I said, just doing a little bit of blogging, a few ebooks and downloads, some forums where people can fill out stuff and download things, and maybe a webinar or two here and there at most, and that's about it. And they're doing that because that's a really easy place to start. It's really, I wouldn't say it's easy because writing is not easy, but it's an easier place to kind of just do that minimum starting point, and that's where they stop a lot of times. That's kind of a thin strategy. And so what I want to talk about a little bit is how do we build out that strategy to make it a bit meatier, a bit deeper, a bit more effective, and a bit more complete. And that's kind of what we're after. So what are we going to do? First off, who's seen Sharknado? Anybody? I'm embarrassed to admit I have seen. It's on Netflix. I just couldn't resist. I'm sorry. Thank you for helping me out with that. So I was speaking last week at a panel, and we were talking about the inbound marketing funnel. So by the way, inbound marketing is a little bit interchangeable with content marketing. It's a little bit different in my opinion because it's got more of a systematic, a little more systematic layer to it, but a lot of things are overlapped. So with inbound marketing and content marketing as well, we talk about this funnel, right? I'm sure all of us have heard of this funnel where we say, okay, the top of the funnel, we've got these people that, look at our content and kind of know about our company up here at the top of the funnel, and then they get toward the middle of the funnel. In the middle of the funnel, there's fewer people that get there, but these are people that go to webinars and download more stuff, and they get really engaged, and they kind of walk down that funnel. And then the bottom of the funnel is where they say, okay, I'm really ready to buy now. I'm going to talk to sales. I'm going to raise my hand and call up and fill out a form and say, I want to talk to sales now. And we have this mythical, idealized funnel that we think works, where people just, they start here, and they go here, and then they go here, and then they just keep going through the funnel, and we have this system, right? So at the panel last week, someone was asking, well, if it's not a funnel, what is it? And I was going to say, well, it's like a big, ball of, fuzz or whatever, or something silly like that. And he's like, it's actually like a Sharknado. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. So the content marketing funnel to me is actually like a Sharknado. It's people bounce around everywhere. Think about how you buy stuff. When you buy stuff, do you search Google and then click on an article and then go read the article and then click on the call to action at the bottom and then go to a landing page and download something, and then the salesperson calls you 3 days later, you say, yep, here's my credit card number. Is that how you buy things? Typically, well, he says yes, okay. One person, yeah, a few people do. And that does happen. I'm not going to discount that because it will happen. But more often, you might read the article here and say, oh, that's cool. That kind of makes sense. You forget about it and go do something else. And then a week later, you see another piece of content from that company because they've promoted something on Facebook. And you say, oh, cool. I'm going to watch this video or whatever. You might go to a webinar next month. You might forget about them for a few months. The salesperson might call you and badger you 7 times. Finally, you answer the phone. You say, oh, I'm not ready now, whatever. Let me think about it. And maybe you read a review from someone else, ask a recommendation from someone. 3-4 months later, maybe you'll be talking to sales, but you've bounced around a bunch, right? That's very common. So we have to understand that we can't always rely on this nice, neat little systematic funnel to get people through. We have to understand that people are going to bounce around in different mediums, in different formats, in different contexts based on their preferences. And we have to honor that. We can't change that, but we have to honor that and be okay with it. And so, one little example I just put together is, for example, let's say you're in the business of project management consulting. I just kind of made up a service. I mean, it's a real service, but I just kind of picked one. So your potential prospect decides she hates her current project management software. So she searches Google for project management software. Now, she's not looking for your service. She's looking for software right now, which you don't sell. So she finds your article reviewing project management software. Maybe you review a few different platforms in your article. She likes it. She uses your article to pick a new application, and then she leaves. She goes away. She's done. You solved her problem, which is awesome. Then she looks at cat videos on Facebook, sees your campaign where you amplify a different blog post. She ignores that. Then a couple months later, she sees your campaign for the 7th time, clicks on the post to read it. She likes that post, and then she leaves, does nothing. So far, she's really done nothing with your company, but she's consumed a lot of your content. Then, a month later, she sees your campaign promoting an ebook, and she clicks and downloads it, but she never reads it. But she got it, right? Now she's a lead in your system, even though she didn't read it. That's okay. 3 months later, she gets an email invitation to one of your webinars. She registers and she attends. She likes your style. She kind of gets to know your company a bit better because she likes kind of the way you present. She's like, oh, these guys are kind of cool. They know what they're talking about. So then a month later, she calls you asking about your service just because she's curious. She has no power to buy right now. She has no budget. She's just curious. She's like, oh, I wonder what these guys do. Salespeople, of course, get super excited, saying, oh, I've got a lead, great. But the call goes well, but she never buys because she has no real urgency or any buying power at the moment. 2 months later, the boss says, hey, we need help with our project management process. We're kind of struggling with this. It's not working. We've got some issues with it. Maybe we should hire a consultant to help us out. Do you have any ideas? So prospect says, oh, hang on. I think I remember this company that did a webinar once. And now we profit, right? Now we have the money coming in because now there's a need. So this is just one example out of a zillion different scenarios, obviously. But we have to understand this is a very common scenario. This is how people buy a lot of times, especially in B2B as well. They bounce around, they delay, they wait for things, they wait for the urgency that might come 6 months later, but they do a bunch of stuff in the meantime. So we have to understand that it's not always this nice, clean little process. And when we understand that, we can really use it to our advantage. And it really does work when implemented with some passion, some effort, some process, some integrations. And this is an example of, people go through over half the buying process before they talk to sales. A lot of people have probably seen this stat. It's very famous from HubSpot. A lot of consumers feel better about a company based on their content. So all this stuff that this prospect was doing, even though each little point wasn't getting to a sale or a transaction right at that moment, you were building a relationship with that person. You were building some rapport even without talking to them. You were building some loyalty there without even them becoming a customer yet. And people are, understanding this. People are prioritizing blogging, and those who do are a lot more likely to get positive ROI. So blogging is kind of the keystone of most content marketing, so that's where we start, obviously. And there's a lot of data showing that ROI really happens. So this stuff does work when implemented, but we have to understand how to implement it properly. So one thing I always recommend as a place to start is to start to build out the different mediums you're working in. Again, a lot of people start with written medium. And written medium is great. Written content is awesome because Google gobbles it up, it indexes it. That's where you should always start. Do not ignore the written medium. Even if you do nothing but webinars and podcasts, get the transcription written. Rev.com is a great service for that. It's like $1 a minute. And you can just upload your videos and podcasts, and they'll transcribe it so Google can index the text, and that's a good thing. So always do that. But beyond blogging and ebooks, is anyone here running a podcast? Anyone? Nobody? Okay, podcasting is trendy now again. It was trendy for a while, and then it went away, and now it's trendy again, and everyone's podcasting now. So I'm recommending that if you're not doing a podcast, get started now, because a couple of years later, when everybody is kind of making it standard, you're going to be ahead of the game and you'll have an audience built. So podcasting is actually not too difficult, and it's a great way to reach people that aren't reading your content as much because they don't like to read as much, but they listen in the car during their commute or while they're doing something else or while they're at the gym. It's a great way to get in someone's ears, in their head, with audio content. Who's doing webinars? Probably a few people are doing webinars, right? Yeah? A few? Okay. Webinars are awesome. They have to be interesting. A lot of webinars are boring. It's really easy to do a boring webinar. I've seen it. Everyone here in this room has been to a boring webinar, right? Where it's like, I'm going to read my bullet points, and I'm going to sell you something at the end, and you're going to wish you'd have that hour back, right? Everyone's been to that webinar. So don't do that webinar. You do the webinar where you're like, okay, I'm going to teach you some awesome stuff that we are experts at in our company. We're going to teach you to do this thing. We're going to keep it short and simple. We're going to speak with passion, and we're not going to try to sell you anything. We're going to make it fun and interesting, and you're going to leave the webinar saying, wow, I have some awesome takeaways from that. That's the kind of webinar you want to do. So those are great ways to reach people and to get in front of them, build some loyalty. Video, I saw a stat I think a couple days ago on Facebook from Jay Baer, who's a local, Bloomington-based marketer. And I forget the actual stat, but it's like 80-90% of content on the internet was going to be video-based in a couple of years or something. It's something just mind-blowing about video. So video is a great way to kind of mix things up as well with your content. Quizzes. A lot of people don't think about things like quizzes or interactive content. Surveys can also be a great way to reach people. So a quiz or a survey can be a simple thing like what Game of Thrones character are you, or what Star Wars character are you, or whatever. Or in a B2B context, I think we did some stuff like, here's an executive SEO quiz. Do you know enough about SEO to know what you're talking about, or something like that, or stuff like that. Or surveys. We had a client once where we did a survey for their particular industry, and in their industry, we said, okay, we're going to poll the community, and we're going to put this like 20, 50, I think it was maybe 30 or so question survey out there, and it was basically a state of the industry report, and we said, okay, everyone in the industry, please submit your data to this survey, and at the end, everyone who submits the data will get a copy of the report. Oops, I'm sorry, I hit my microphone. And the copy of that report will give them information they can use in their business. And we had like 1,000 people complete the survey. Great report. We designed it to be beautiful, and made an awesome download, and we generated 1,000 leads from it because these were all people that we gave the report back to, but they gave us their information, so they became leads. So surveys and quizzes can be a great way to generate leads and make it interesting and useful to people as well. If it's really useful to people because they're going to get something back, that can really resonate with people. Slide decks as well. A lot of people don't think about using SlideShare or building slide decks out. Let people download your slide deck from the website, or maybe open it up on SlideShare. People love flipping through a short slide deck to kind of get some basic information. So infographics can be turned into info slides and info decks sometimes. Worksheets, a lot of people think about ebooks or white papers as your download, but a worksheet can be awesome. It can be simple. Take a one-page worksheet that you sit down and do a consultation with, put that on the web and make it beautiful and say, download this one-page worksheet to solve this quick problem, or a spreadsheet or a kit. We have a website audit kit on our website. It's our #1 download because one of our target markets is marketing directors who are scoping out the market for a new agency like us to work with to build their new website for their company. And what do they want? A nice audit kit that gives them all sorts of things they can use to then give a presentation to their company to say, here's what budget we should pick, here's what's wrong with our current site, here's some ideas for the new site, and all the stuff they need to look good to their boss and present the case for a new website. So we help them do their job better with this little kit. So get creative with your mediums. You can do a lot more than just articles and downloads. You can do a lot more stuff with all these different mediums. Now, that might sound really daunting to say, oh, crap, I've got to do all these different, I've got to do a podcast, I've got to do webinars, I've got to do slide decks, I've got to do quizzes, and so I'm working 60 hours a week plus everything else, right? Like, this sounds really daunting. Well, the key to making this work is recycling and repurposing content. So what I mean is, if you write a blog post, turn that into your next podcast episode. If you have a podcast episode, turn that into your next webinar. Make that next webinar rewritten into an ebook. Make that ebook into a slide deck or an infographic. Turn that into something else and keep that cycle going. You don't have to create something brand new for every single channel. In fact, you shouldn't, because that's inefficient. What you want to do is have a nice bank of topics and ideas and stuff you can teach, and teach that stuff everywhere. Just package it differently. There are plenty of people that will listen to all these things, and they'll be your super fans, and they will just be super loyal, and they'll get the same content sometimes, and that's okay. But most people, will consume what they want based on their preference. You'll have people that read your blog. You'll have people that listen to your podcast, and there'll be different groups of people. So it's okay to kind of recycle and repurpose content because it keeps you efficient and gets your content everywhere. So, topic planning. So when you're picking topics, you want to make sure you're doing keyword research. A lot of tools I like for keyword research include things like Moz, HubSpot, excuse me, keywordtool.io is one I really like. Anyone have favorite tools for keyword research they like? Anyone doing keyword research? Yeah, what are you doing? Yeah, Raven Tools is good. I like Raven Tools. Anybody else? SEMrush? Those guys are great. Yeah, SEMrush is a good tool. Yeah. Same thing? Cool. And these all integrate well with Sitefinity from what I hear, so there you go. Excuse me. So customer service questions are also a really good place to get content ideas. So one thing I tell people is if you're looking for great ideas for content, have your customer service or your salespeople just blind carbon copy whoever's collecting it whenever they answer a question via email. And there's a topic right there. Because they're getting questions all day long they're answering. So BCC that to your marketing person, whoever's collecting content, and that will give them a ton of ideas. Excuse me, allergies. And then, again, sales questions, same concept. You want to really develop a system and a culture so that the whole company is behind this idea of sending ideas to your marketing team. And that lets you go deeper into topics, so you're not just scratching the surface, you're actually going deeper. Pardon me, the changing weather always gets my allergies, so I'm going to cough a little bit, so sorry about that. Indiana allergies are fun, aren't they? Anyone doing buyer personas? This guy is on it. What's your name? Aaron. You're doing all this stuff. That's cool. So buyer personas are, it'll last about a minute and then I'll be okay. Sorry about that. Buyer personas are your idealized target prospect. So HubSpot's got a great tool to build these called makemypersona.com. If you go there, it'll ask you a bunch of questions. Excuse me, like, what do these people do? Where do they hang out? What are their job titles? And you can build these personas, and that's where you want to focus your content. You want to build your content around solving problems for these personas. And that helps you really focus on, excuse me, the right people. Also, getting on a schedule really helps. So one thing that we've done at our company is we've realized that it's really easy for your marketing team to kind of forget about your own company. So if you're producing all this stuff for clients and you're serving clients, the excuse is always, well, we don't really have time to serve ourselves because we're busy working with our clients, right? So what we do is we treat ourselves like a client. So in our company, SpinWeb is a client just like everyone else. So we have ourselves in the same schedule. We're in our own project management system. And we treat ourselves like a client so that we don't ignore our own content. And that keeps us on track. So if you're ever struggling with trying to make sure that you're giving your own content strategy the effort it deserves, think about putting your own company in the same schedule as your clients are, because that helps you kind of stay on track. Got some cold water here. I think that helps. Is there any, can I borrow that cold water real quick? That pitcher? Sorry for the quick interruption here. Awesome. Thank you. Much better. Anybody else have allergies? Yeah, Indiana is like allergy central, so especially when there's changing weather. So ice water really helps. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Now here's something big. Amplification. Is anybody here doing paid content amplification? I knew you were. Anybody else putting a budget into amplifying your content on Facebook, on something like Outbrain? Yeah, a couple of people? Good, good. If you do nothing else differently, I'm sure you'll do a bunch of stuff that's going to be awesome, but if you do one thing to start with, start amplifying your content. And by amplifying your content, I mean take your best articles and your best downloads and your best stuff and run evergreen campaigns to amplify that. And what you can do is let's take Facebook, for example. Facebook has the best ad platform, I think, out there. Any social network. It's awesome. So you take a blog post and you build a custom audience of your personas. So whether it's whoever that persona is, job titles, specific types of companies, age ranges, locations, geographies, build an audience of those people, amplify your content to those people, and you can get that content in front of exactly who needs to see it. And you can do all sorts of logic. You can say, once they see this blog post, take them out of that audience so they don't see it again, so that it goes to the next person, and then the next person, the next person. So you can be really efficient and pinpointed about your targeting. Also, when someone visits your website, once they do that, you can put them into another custom audience of people that have seen this page or your whole website or whatever, or looked at that topic or this topic. And what you can do is you can then start to build your own microfunnels based on what they see. Once they see this, show them this. Once they see that, show them that next. And by amplifying your content to the right people and then doing further amplification based on their behavior, you can really pinpoint the right people at the right time. And that really, really amplifies the reach of your content. Where everyone else is just kind of spitting it out organically, saying, I'm going to share it on social media and hope something happens. You're over here investing in real amplification and reaching real prospects. And also you can encourage conversions with that. So once you get enough people in these audiences, you can start to offer downloads to them and track those conversions. And you can start to see exactly how many dollars you're paying per lead. You can say, I'm spending $5 per lead and my average sale is $10,000. So gosh, that's awesome ROI. And I've seen those exact numbers with our clients. They spend a few bucks on a lead. We have an engineering firm, for example. We had to push them and push them and push them to do webinars. Finally, they do webinars. And they're like, okay, this is kind of scary for us, but we're going to do some webinars. Their very first webinar, we amplified on Facebook. And by the way, they're a B2B company. They're an engineering firm. And they were completely anti-Facebook. They were saying, LinkedIn is where I need to be because LinkedIn is business, right? I said, no, let's track things on Facebook because there are still those same people on Facebook. They spent literally $3 per lead on some webinar registrations, and they got 5 figures worth of business from that webinar. So they're pretty convinced now that this stuff works. So it worked out pretty well for them. Also, when you're amplifying, work with partners and influencers. So if you don't kind of do things in a vacuum, look for partners to work with. So we have a lot of partners that we work with, some CMS providers, for example, technology companies, other companies that kind of complement what we do. And we will cross-promote content with mailing lists, with social media, with content, and we'll help each other out by using each audience to kind of build up both audiences. So reach out to partners that are complementary to your business and try to figure out how you can help each other grow your audience together by sharing content. So you really want to budget for promotion. It doesn't have to be a whole lot to start with, but it's really important today to really accept the fact that we have to budget for promotion. If you're just spitting content out organically and hoping it sticks, you may get some results, but you're really not going to get the results that you want or as quickly as you want without some budget set aside for content amplification, whether it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, a service like Outbrain, something like that. And then finally, integrating with sales is where you really want to focus as well if this is not happening already. So integrating with sales means having your CRM tied to your marketing tools. So whether it's Sitefinity or we use HubSpot, which wraps around any CMS. That's our database for marketing. Our leads go in there, we segment them, we score them, we filter them, and they flow immediately into our CRM, which is HubSpot CRM. So whatever CRM you're using, whether it's Salesforce or something else, be sure it's linked up to your marketing database so that your salespeople know exactly where to go to get prospects and leads. They can go in there, it's continuously updated, marketing and sales are in sync, and they're talking. I like weekly, but if you can do it monthly, that's better than nothing. Have your marketing and sales teams talk and have a real formal meeting on a regular basis so that sales can say, hey, I'm hearing these questions and these problems in the sales process. And marketing can say, oh, great, we can write content to address that stuff and get it out there. And marketing can say, hey, did you use this piece we wrote for you in the sales process? The sales goes, oh, I didn't know about that. Let me start using that. And you start to get this integration between the two worlds. And it really makes a huge difference in the effectiveness and the speed at which you can close sales. So maybe a little hard to read, but kind of wrapping up, an illustration of kind of what I see a lot, I think kind of what a more filled out strategy might look like. The typical marketer, again, is blogging once a week, but sometimes misses when they get busy. They might post a white paper a few times a year. Their content topics typically come from inside the company. They don't really reach outside for content. They don't really do a lot of keyword research. They aren't promoting with a budget. They're just kind of organically sharing. No real connection between the campaigns. They're just kind of putting stuff out and seeing what happens. And the sales team is still really cold calling because they don't really talk to marketing a whole lot. They're just kind of doing their own thing. And this is kind of a made-up stat, but I think it's probably pretty close. I think 80 to 90%, if not more, of organizations that we start working with are in this particular situation. They're starting from here. If even that, they're maybe not even doing this much. They're just kind of saying, well, we've heard content marketing is important, so we're kind of doing this stuff, right? So by the end, what we want to get them to, and what we want to get everyone to the point of blogging a few more times per week, getting more content on a regular basis, having a monthly schedule for your guides and your worksheets, running a webinar series or a podcast, repurposing content between the different worlds, mixing things up a lot, and taking topics and going from here to here to here and repurposing in different ways and different interesting spins on it so that you can get the same topic out there to all the people that consume in different formats. And that really extends your reach a lot. They're doing keyword research. They're creating topics from external sources like client questions and customer service questions and sales questions. And they're budgeting for amplification. This is a big deal. Budgeting for amplification is really, really, really important. It is probably the number one thing that I start with when someone's saying, we want to go faster. Okay, boom, amplify your content, build a budget in for amplifying that content, get it out there. You'll move a lot faster. Again, through social and through search networks or content networks. It can be AdWords amplification, it can be social amplification, or it can be content like, again, Outbrain is one that we've used before. They're generating leads through those offers, and the sales team is integrated with the marketing team. Sales and marketing are talking to each other, and the leads are flowing between the two worlds, and the sales people know exactly where to go to get those passive and active leads in the database, and that's where their prospecting comes from. They're not cold calling. They are what I call warm calling because they've got a leads database built from the marketing system that's in place, not going out there and making it up on their own. So this may sound daunting to some people, but it really is possible. I believe in you. It's possible to do this. So what I recommend starting with is, get your content calendar set up. Treat your own company like a client. That's step one. Get your content calendar running. Get a process set up. Start with one channel at a time. Don't try and bite all of stuff at once. Get one channel set up at a time. Amplify slowly. Set a little bit of a budget to start amplifying a blog post here. Amplify a blog post there. Run a Facebook campaign for this webinar. Run a LinkedIn campaign for this. Kind of see how they perform, measure, and then build your strategy based on the data you gather from those sources. And again, add those mediums little by little. Start to repurpose older stuff. So you might have some old stuff laying around that you can repurpose. Start to get that out there. And then be sure you bring sales in the process, both from a people and a tech standpoint. So from a people standpoint, again, just make sure the salespeople and marketing people are talking to each other. That's step one. Step two, make sure your tech is integrated as well. Make sure your marketing database talks to your CRM and vice versa. So again, it really sounds silly, but it helps to really just believe and stick with it. A lot of people get frustrated and they just kind of give up right about there. That's where they give up. This is a real, ignore the gaps. There's some tech issues that happen there that's actually unrelated. But if you look at, I think the analytics account, just get disconnected for some reason, so whoops. But anyway, the trend you can see. So if you look at a few years back here, here's where they were doing kind of the basic kind of weaker stuff. Just a few blog posts, a little bit of content, not very consistent, just kind of getting stuff out there. And most people give up right about there. They give up in that space. They say, oh, this isn't really working for me. I'm just going to stop doing it. I'm just going to do something else. Didn't work out, whatever. When the magic happens over here, when you really start to put passion, effort behind it, strategy behind it, repurposing content, recycling, being efficient, and building a system, this is where the magic happens. And obviously you can see their traffic went up like 10 times plus. And now they're enjoying lots and lots of leads, lots of activity, lots of traffic. A lot of people know about them, good search results. That's where the magic really happens. So it does pay off to have patience. A lot of people give up there. And the good news is most people give up too early, which means that those of you who don't give up too early are going to eventually see the rewards. And when you look back, it's going to be all worth it because you've built this foundation that works for you. So as